Good evening and welcome. You're with the News First, the number one news provider. I'm Samir Rasuldi.
And I'm Krishni Panadarathan. We start off with a look at your headlines tonight.
The Defence Secretary speaks before the Commission on Lessons Learned and Reconciliation. A heated debate breaks out in Parliament over recent court-martial verdict. Minister Dalla Salah Perma says injustice will not occur to anyone due to the loss of GSP Plus concessions. And also, Sri Lanka cricket launches investigation into the no-ball bowled by Suraj Randeep, which prevented Virendra Sehwag from reaching his century in yesterday's ODI.
The sixth public sitting of the Commission on Lessons Learned and Reconciliation appointed by the President was held today. The sitting took place at the Lakshman Kadiragam Institute for International Relations and Strategic Studies. Defence Secretary Gotabaya Rajapaksa expressed these views at today's sitting.
Over this period, that is from this time when we started the humanitarian operations, the three services suffered nearly 6,000 killed in action and nearly 30,000 were injured to various extent. You can see if the army suffered or the services suffered close to 6,000, you can imagine that the intensity of fighting which was going on. And this is another fact that some of the people have forgotten and couldn't realize. I want to bring out this factor because some people talk about these civilian casualties. That, it is a very difficult thing to identify. If the military had suffered 6,000 killed in action and nearly 30,000 wounded or injured at various degree, that you can imagine how much of LTT casualties should have been. But nobody talks of the LTT deaths and the LTT injured and casualties. They all put these figures also into the civilian casualty figure.
The Defence Secretary also spoke about the international support pertaining to the IDPs.
That from the very beginning that we have realized that one day that we had to face this IDP situation. His Excellency the President wanted to establish semi-permanent type buildings with cement base and proper walls. So we started building this, but unfortunately some of the international community was suspicious about this whole thing. They thought that we are making permanent camps for the IDP so that we will not resettle them for a longer period. And they objected to building this type of permanent, semi-permanent buildings. And we expected assistance from the UN organizations and the various international organizations, but they didn't give any assistance for this type of permanent buildings. They preferred the normal tents instead of permanent. And that caused a lot of problems at the end. Unfortunately, that there was a misconception of the whole, the good intentions that the government had on providing good accommodation for IDPs.
Defence Secretary Gotabaya Rajapaksa further commented on land in Jaffna.
There is an issue in Jaffna Peninsula alone, not in not a single place, because we have enough government land. But in Jaffna Peninsula, there is an issue, but we are addressing that. That's the high security zone in Palali and KK's area. It's a long-standing problem. 2000 or so that we had taken a lot of land owned by private people surrounding Palali. Obviously, had to do that because of a security reason. But that also, now we are taking steps to identify exactly what we want. And we are now in the process of surveying the land, and what if there are private property in that area, definitely we will buy that. We will pay compensation for them, and also we will give alternate land for them.
Meanwhile, former parliamentarian Mangala Munasinghe expressed these views before the commission today.
We are learning lessons. We must learn lessons that this type of confrontational politics between the government and the opposition should not hinder national unity and the nation. These are lessons that we should learn, never to repeat. The confrontational politics between the government and the opposition still continues. And then when 83 happened, the world took shocked at what brutality we did, because 13 soldiers were killed in a landmine, sir. Unarmed Tamils was attacked by a political group. It's not a single Tamil riot. It was a political riot and not a terrorist thing. Because these people did no harm. Their houses were destroyed, their children were killed, their husbands were killed. So who started terrorism? It was we.
The second court-martial to hear charges against former Army Commander Sarath Fonseca convened at the Navy headquarters today. Army spokesperson Major General Ube Madhavala said that the charges presented against Sarath Fonseca included acting dishonorably outside the accepted procedures to procure equipment for the Army. After cross-examining the third witness, the 21st of August was set as the next court date.
Sri Lanka Freedom Party Treasurer Minister Dalasala Peruma says that what was gained through the conclusion of the war is far greater than what was lost through GSP Plus concessions not being extended. He said this during a media briefing held at the SLFP headquarters this morning.
As a government, we state with responsibility at this time that we will not let any injustice occur to any group of employees or to even a single family due to this problem. We don't see this as a huge issue. We have many alternatives at this point of time. Friends, what we gained through the conclusion of the war is far greater than what we lost through GSP Plus concessions not being extended. There is no war risk in the country. The countries that imposed those restrictions have themselves lifted them. The country is full of tourists. There is no insurance premium. Interest rates have decreased and costs imposed on flights also did not increase. We received many benefits. Several high-ranking officials of the United National Party engaged in a discussion at the party headquarters, Sirikota, this evening. Here are some of the views expressed subsequent to the discussion. The discussion was held under the patronage of opposition leader Ranil Wickramasinghe. Today we discussed the manner in which the UNP restructuring report will be implemented. The party leader, Deputy Leader Sajid Premadasa and Ravi Karunayaka discussed how we should take the party towards a victorious path once again. This is because we will be facing local government elections in the future and we will have to carry out several campaigns as soon as possible. Today we had extensive discussions and exchanged views on how we will be carrying out these activities. Accordingly, we will hold discussions during this week again. Before the end of the week, we will discuss how we will be entrusting responsibilities and powers, and thereafter we will finalize everything. The meeting today was successful. The hope of the people and supporters of the party is to see a UNP government coming into power and resolving the burning issues in the country. Today we all reached an agreement on certain issues and we will be working in the future in a peaceful manner. These discussions will continue in the future as well. I see this meeting as a positive step.
The bodies of the 3 persons who were reported missing after the dinghy in which they were travelling in capsized in the seas of Kirinda yesterday were recovered following a search operation that lasted several hours. The accident occurred last evening when a boat that was carrying 7 persons, including a Navy officer, capsized.
A Navy officer and a group of his friends were on a pleasure cruise in a Navy dinghy in the seas off Kirinda when tragedy struck. Navy spokesperson Captain mtlo1708201001 said that the boat had capsized at around 3:30 last afternoon. The boat had toppled while in close proximity to the sea access route near the Kirinda port jetty after being caught in rough seas. A woman and a young girl involved in the accident were rescued by fishermen in the area. The body of the Navy officer and another child were recovered subsequently. While another individual and 2 more children were reported missing thereafter, their bodies were recovered on 3 separate occasions today. The victims include Sub-Lieutenant mtlo1708201001 Champika Pereira, a training officer of Navy cadets, and some of his friends from the Bingiri area. The youngest of 4 brothers, Sub-Lieutenant Champika Pereira, studied at the Takshila Central College in Horana and subsequently joined the Navy in 1982. After retiring from active service in 2002, he rejoined as a training officer. 49-year-old Champika Pereira was a father of 1. A friend of the Navy officer, R.P. Vasantakumara, the vice principal of the Kandarola Junior School, was also killed in the accident. The other victims include Vasantakumara's 12-year-old daughter, R.P. Ayesha Navodi, and 6-year-old Satmini Sandeepa. The other young girl killed in the accident was also Vasantakumara's relative. However, Vasantakumara's wife, a teacher by profession, was rescued.
They go to their mother's hometown for any holiday. It was when they were on holiday that they had gone on a boat ride. She had clung on to a rock and climbed ashore, but her husband and children had been washed away.
The family had travelled to Lunagambera at the beginning of the school holidays last Wednesday. They had undertaken this boat ride following an invitation extended to them by a Navy officer who was known to them.
You're with News First.
Coming up on News Tonight.